Hi, my name is Caitlin Wilcox, and my piece is called The Pawnbroker. It's a series of monologues from the 5 central women in Bertolt Brecht's life. And what I'm going to show you are sort of condensed versions of 2 of the monologues. The first is Margareta Steffin. She was one of Brecht's major collaborators, and she was very unassuming and selfless, and she suffered from tuberculosis, which figures pretty prominently in her story. The second is Ruth Berlau. She was also one of Brecht's collaborators, and she was an outspoken, unstable revolutionary, and she was ultimately committed to a mental institution. So I thought that would show you some good character contrast and give you a little taste of what the piece is like. Thank you. I am not a prude, but the first time I am alone with Bert Brecht, he tries to grope under my skirt, and I object. I am a communist, and I believe in free sexual expression, but I want to get to know my partner first. Bert is persistent, and quickly his offers to drive me home become requests to spend the night. I am not inexperienced. I have lived with a man for 4.5 years, but with Bert it is different. The attraction is absolute, consuming. I fear I will die of it. I am deeply flattered when he tells me that my writing is of such quality and so similar to his that I can be one of the select few he allows to travel and collaborate with him, the Brecht group. However, I soon learned that his personal circle is much larger than his professional one. The next few years are filled with endless travel, writing, and illness. Bert sends me all over Scandinavia, Russia, Western Europe. I am nowhere at home. Nowhere. I always have to beg for a place for me and my suitcase. But I cannot deny Bert. When he asks me to keep his affairs in order in some foreign country or look for a place the group can settle permanently, how can I refuse? The constant traveling worsens my tuberculosis and is a progressive strain on my health. I am in and out of hospitals and finally placed on a ward for the desperately ill, where I watch as the bed next to me is filled and emptied and filled again. I lie awake all night and ask myself when his friends will say to another girl like me, yes, it was about that time he had that girl with him. I think her name was Greta Steffin. But Bert reassures me. He gives me a ring to remember him by and tells me that from now on, Orion is our constellation. Wherever we might be in the future, he says, however physically distant we might be, if we go outside and look up at Orion, we will really be together. The work is what keeps me going. By November 1938, a new idea has surfaced. Bert wants to write a play about the 17th century physicist Galileo. We plan that it will be symbolic of Bukharin's trial and recantation in the Soviet Union. But no sooner is the first draft of Galileo finished than it begins to take on a new layer of meaning. News comes from Berlin that Einstein's former colleagues have split the atom. We revise Galileo to suggest that science itself can become deadly to the human race. Along with the play, I continue to work on translations and Bert's new book of poems, despite my headaches and fevers. The work is everything, worth any sacrifice. The plays have almost become the children I will never have, and I pour whatever energy I have into them. But the environment has become increasingly hostile. I preach constantly, America! But we arranged to move to Finland instead, where Bert and I work extensively on a new piece called Mother Courage, which argues that war is a business in which world leaders engage for profit. This play, like Galileo, excites me greatly because of its potential for social and political influence. But like so many of our others, it is unstageable at the time. My illness begins to blur reality into feverish hallucinations and dreams. I am aboard the ship of fever. I want to reach the shore of health, but the ship never reaches shore. Below deck, I see a large number of actors sitting on benches. What do they want from me? I ask the guard. Their roles, he says. What are your favorites? Demand the actors. All those plays that through these bad times could not be staged. Mother Courage, Galileo, Szechuan, these are the ones I love best. These new plays cannot be played unless the times change, but the times will never change unless these new plays can now be played. By the time my work on the play is completed, I can only remain out of bed for 20 minutes without collapsing. Long overdue. I check into a hospital, but Nazi Germany is drawing ever closer, and finally, in late 1940, 3 years after I had implored him to go, Bert finally decides that we must leave for America. But having delayed so long, our only route lies across the length of the Soviet Union. As German warships drop anchor in the Finnish port of Turku, we book tickets to nearby Leningrad. I am the only Russian speaker of the group, so when we reach the Soviet border, though I am barely able to stand or talk, I must deal with the hours of perilous questions. My nights are spent coughing and shivering uncontrollably, and I begin to realize that I am arranging a journey which I will never make. The constant difficult negotiations are my final undoing, and when the ambulance arrives, I hear the attendants ask whether they should bother taking me to the hospital at all. They carry me to my room, and when Bert visits that evening, he tells me he has managed to get the last 5 tickets on a ship to America in 2 weeks. I tell him that's good. I'll follow. The last days in the hospital, I am pained by the fact that without me, Bert gets almost no work done. And I worry, what will happen to the plays when I am gone?